Okay, we're rolling.
Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you. Hope you're doing well. This is going to be an interesting one. I hope you enjoy this. We're going to be talking about intros. Why your listeners are tuning out of your podcast before you even start. Podcast intros minus the word salad. Yeah, we're already into the show. How's that? Intro's done. My name is Dave. Welcome to the show. This is it. We're already starting into the content, and we are 30 seconds in. Now, is this going to work for everyone? Is everyone's show got to be like Dave's show? Obviously not. But I'm going to give you an example of the extreme opposite of what I do on my shows, but what I hear often in podcasts, and I don't think anybody's raised a flag and went, okay, time out on, wait a minute. I think we need to reel it back a little bit because I think people have gone a little bit too far with the length of their intro for their show. And I'm going to give you an example. It's fictitious. It's not a real podcast. These aren't real people. No podcasters were harmed in the making of this episode. So don't bother go look for these people because they don't exist. This is all made up, but it's made up to make a point. And the point is, your podcast intros are getting too long, everybody. And as a listener, it's frustrating. So, yeah, let's just start off with Dave's rant for the day, and then we'll get into the content. Okay, here, I know it's coming. Here's Dave's rant. Oh, I warned you. Here it comes.
And now, it is time for Dave to share a most excellent rant on something that he just won't stop talking about. Please allow Dave to share his thoughts on this particular subject so that his glorious wife Jennifer may have a moment of rest from Dave going on and on about this topic. Here is Dave and his rant for this week.
Okay, so it's podcast intros. This is my rant. Okay, I'm going to get it off my chest. Again, no podcasters will be harmed in the making of this rant. When I listen to your show, I typically listen to a ton of your episodes at once. So I hear the same intro over and over and over. Oh, and over. Because I'm batch listening. I'm listening from one episode to the next, to the next, to the next. When I find a show I love, I listen to every episode. I go right back to the beginning. And yeah, I just, because when I find your show, I want to hear everything you've done. I want to hear your journey. I want to hear everything about what you do. Your whole back's everything. I love your show. What I don't love is your extended intros. Oh, for the love of podcasting, what is going on? Who told you that the winner in podcasting is the person with the longest intro? It's like a challenge that's been put out there for podcasters to, let's make this as long as possible. And let's use a bunch of words we would never say to our best friend. Let's just throw this into an AI thing and say, make me sound smarter than I am. Why? Because there's words in here that I would have to stop and Google because I don't even know what the words are. But I'll put them in my intro because they sound sexy. And my intro becomes this complete ego stroke over time that as a listener, again, if we listen to your show episodes back to back to back, it's like enough with the intro length already. Come on. Like, I don't know who you're trying to impress. So what I'm going to do in this episode, again, no podcasters were harmed in the making of this episode. I'm going to play an exaggerated intro. And it's going to play in the background while we're doing the episode. I'm going to keep going back to it and just seeing where we're at in the intro. Is the intro still going? And pretty much the intro is going to last the entire length of this podcast in the background while we're doing this episode. That's how long some intros are. The intro could be the episode. Like the entire episode could be the intro. That's what I'm saying. It's getting that bad. And I'm putting this out there for you to kind of time yourself and time your intro and go, okay, wait a minute. Is my intro getting out of hand? Like, Is it? Okay, I think I've gone too far. I might have gone a little too far. Dave's right. In this one, I'll give it to Dave. Yeah, Dave's saying it's a little long. Maybe I can trim some of the fat off of this intro because it's annoyingly long. So I'm going to introduce you to a podcast. Again, a fake podcast. This is not a real person. This is not a real show. The products and services and everything that's mentioned is all made up. And it is just an example, an exaggerated example of what I'm hearing as a listener and where I think we're going too far. Because our listener is paying the price for a podcast that starts like this. Okay, first of all, what's with all the music? Okay, I'll wait. You get your jam on, I'll wait. Oh, wait. Oh.
Hey there, and welcome back, friends, thought leaders, conscious disruptors, paradigm alchemists, and multidimensional go-getters. You're tuned into the Synergy Spectrum, where we don't just discuss innovation, we vibrate with it. This is the audio space where we explore the interconnectedness of purpose, praxis, and personal bandwidth in the age of exponential becoming. I'm your host, Blaine Everford Weston III.
Oh, okay, that's okay. There's a lot of P's in there. And one thing I would say is all we're saying is, give P's a chance. I think that's a song. But yeah, that's okay. But that's not the entire intro. That is just the beginning of the intro. Oh, wait, but there is so much more to this. Okay, I'll just give you a little bit more, and then we're going to get into what we're going to talk about today. But again, we're going to keep coming back to this intro as we go through the episode to kind of touch in with our host here and see how she's doing with her intro, because I think she's got a lot to say. So here's a little bit more of the intro, and then we're going to get into the content. But let's go back to our host.
Multi-hyphenate entrepreneur, certified breathwork facilitator, and unretired visionary. And before we dive into today's high-resonance conversation, I just want to check in with you all because, honestly, what a week it's been. Like, wow. Monday morning hit me like an email from the universe I forgot to archive.
You got me.
I woke up at 4:44 a.m., my angel number, obviously.
Of course.
And I felt called to make some major shifts. I redid my entire Notion workspace, color-coded my emotional priorities, recalibrated my sleep hygiene algorithm, and then, get this, accidentally fasted for 19 hours because I was in a flow state editing my personal manifesto video. I've been microdosing on intention ever since. Tuesday was wild, too. I got this oat milk flat white from the new Third Wave coffee bar down the street.
Oh, here we go.
The one that doesn't take cash, cards,
So I know
or
you're probably
Apple
thinking
Pay,
like, okay, well,
only
Dave,
good
what's
vibes
the
on
problem? Like, why? What's your point here? It's just the fact that we're still in the intro. Like the show technically hasn't got started. The guest is sitting there waiting on the screen to talk, and the host is now having chit-chat time with the audience. I like connecting with the audience. I'm not saying that's a bad idea. I'm just saying that maybe it could be placed somewhere else in the content than at the very beginning. We're still in the intro, and we haven't even got to what we're talking about yet. You have a very short window of time to capture the attention of a listener. Now, if this was on YouTube, people would have been gone already because you have even a shorter window to capture the attention of your audience. So if you're a YouTube podcast, I think you need to have even shorter intros than you have in audio podcasting. The audio audience tends to be a little bit more forgiving, but even then there's limits. And I want to talk about how we can make our intros better on our podcast for the sake of our audience. Yes, you can do anything you want in your show. Anything. It's your show. And my thoughts here, my recommendations to you are simply that. They're just recommendations. You can do whatever you want in your show. But when you reach out to me and say, Dave, like, I'm not getting a lot of engagement with my podcast, or people are skipping through my show, and people are coming, but they're leaving. What is going on? It could be your first impression. Your intro is your podcast's first impression. And if you give a bad first impression, it's hard to keep people around. So I want to address the elephant in the studio today, not the room, the studio. Your podcast intros have gotten a little out of hand. They're supposed to be something that welcomes your listeners in, sets the tone, gives a sense of who's talking, not just serve as unsolicited 12-minute autobiography with background music. But lately, pressing play on a podcast feels less like joining a conversation and more like getting cornered at a network event by someone who really wants you to know about their journey. And take my business card, and here's my truth, and all this stuff. And I'm like, wait, and you can't get away from them. You have nothing left in your drink. Your napkin is empty. There's nothing to eat. And they've got you cornered in the corner, and you can't get around them. They would be a great football player because they got you blocked in. And you're just like, oh, that's what podcast intros are turning into for a large amount of podcasts that I listen to. I don't know why I'm picking these shows that have these extended intros, but I'm finding them. It starts innocently enough. Welcome back to the show. And then it spirals from there. Suddenly, we're knee-deep in a monologue about the host's morning smoothie, a gratitude practice, how they manifested their microphone through persistence and purpose and deeply transformative experience that had after reading a book on leadership by someone named Chad. Before you know it, you've learned the full academic lineage of your guest, every brand they've ever worked with, thought about, heard of, and hosts reflections on their vulnerability, the hustle culture, and the seasons of life. And you still haven't gotten to the episode yet. Here's the painful truth around podcast intros. Audience, they don't need your life story. They just pressed play. They're not your bestie. They're a podcast listener. The way you talk to your best friend can have elements in your show. I want you to be engaging with your audience, but your audience isn't your best friend. There are people that are pressing play on this episode. This is your first time here, and you're like, who's this clown? So understand, you don't have a bestie relationship with every listener of your show. Be human, be connective, be relatable, but they're not your bestie. Okay? I'm sorry, they're not. Your podcast audience doesn't need your life story. They just press play. They don't want a keynote. They want a conversation. This isn't a TED. Your intros are not TED Talks where they just sit passively and listen to you go on and on and on. This is not a keynote address. This is a conversation between you and the listener, you and your guest and the listener. Long intros often signal the worst impulse in podcasting, the desire to prove that you're legitimate and that you're an authority before earning the listener's trust through content. And that's why I get really annoyed with podcasts about podcasting, where the podcaster rambles on and on and on and on and on about why they're the one to listen to, instead of just giving somebody something to listen to. Like, I got it. I pressed play on your show. I don't know who you're trying to convince here. I'm here. I'm listening. You're talking almost like you're talking to the person who's not listening to your show, trying to convince them to come and join me as a listener of your show. I don't need you to wave your flags all over me and pump yourself up in front of me. Unless your podcast is a flat tire, you don't need to pump anything up. I'm here. Like, it's kind of like a car salesman trying to convince me that I need to buy a car when I'm standing in front of him saying, I'm here to buy a car. And they're like, oh, you need to buy a car. And I'm like, I know. I'm standing here and I just told you I want to buy a car. And they're like, no. You need to hear about how good of a car salesman I am. I'm one of the best car salesmen here. And you need to buy a car. I'm like, I know. I'm standing here. I just came in. Yeah, but you need to buy a car. Yeah, I know I do. I'm standing here. But you need to hear about how good of I am as a salesman. If you're a good salesman, then why haven't I bought a car yet? Like, what do you want me to do? You don't need to convince everybody of all of the things that you've ever accomplished in life. I don't understand why this is such a big deal. Why are we so enamored with proving that we are legitimate and that we're the authority on everything that the show is about? They're not audience engagement tools. They're almost, in some cases, not all, they're kind of like ego performances disguised as context. It's just ego stroking, front-loading every accolade, anecdote, and alliterative tagline doesn't make your show sound professional. It makes it sound like a hostage situation with music, fading in and out. Before we begin, pushes your audience closer to the skip button or skip ahead button, or worse, unfollow. Before we begin, I'm not a fan of that at the intro of your show. I just pressed play. We just began. So don't tell me we're going to do something else before we begin, because I just began. So what's really going on here? I think in some cases, again, not in broad strokes, not specific to you and your show, but in general terms, in podcasting, there's an insecurity dressed up as branding. There are hosts that fear that without a long intro, their show won't seem serious, credible, or polished. That they're not legitimate. They're not a credible resource. They're not somebody worth listening to. So I'm going to give you an extended intro to kind of coerce you into believing that you're in the right spot. Here's the irony. Listeners are actually more likely to value your credibility if you respect their time. The human attention span is not your sandbox for your own personal catharsis. You don't need to narrate your hero's journey, read your guest's LinkedIn bio word for word, or deliver a 5-minute dissertation on why this episode is special. Listeners have already made that decision when they hit play. Oh, wait, let's go back to the intro, see if our host is still going. Here, one sec.
Tuesday was wild, too. I got this oat milk flat white from the new Third Wave coffee bar down the street. The one that doesn't take cash, cards, or Apple Pay, only good vibes on Venmo. And I swear it changed the frequency of my cells. Then I had Pilates, but it wasn't typical Pilates. It was more of an emotionally intelligent Pilates class that integrates affirmations with spinal realignment and executive shadow work.
Sounds painful.
Anyway, that kind of blurred into Wednesday, which I thought was Thursday, until I realized my phone calendar had synced with Australian Eastern Time because I'd accidentally joined a digital nomad Slack for brand consultants in Bali. This happens more often than you'd think. Now, as I spent like 3 hours accidentally mentoring someone on tactile empathy and user experience design before realizing I was in the wrong channel. Oh, and something I wanted to share. I'm trying out this new cold plunge protocol that combines gratitude journaling with submersion tracking. I've been doing 3-minute plunges while listening to classical lo-fi remixes of Fortune 500 mission statements. It's been transformative. Also, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw my post about the new artisan candle lineup I'm beta testing for the Conscious Aroma Leadership series. Scent profiles inspired by keywords like synergy, authenticity, and bandwidth. Speaking of bandwidth...
So, yeah, still going. The intro is still happening in the background while we're chatting. Again, this is meant to be satirical, is meant to be something we can all kind of shake our heads at and go, okay, I get the point, Dave. I see what you're doing here. And remember, no podcasters were harmed in the making of this episode. So what is the cure in all this? As we hear these extended intros, I don't want this to be critical. I don't want this to be hyper sensitive. But at the same time, I don't hear a lot of people calling this out. And I think, which ironic, is that a lot of podcasts about podcasting tend to be some of the worst offenders of long intros. And that's ironic because they're supposed to be the ones that are helping to make things concise and to the point and connective. And it's interesting. It's just interesting. So what's the cure? I think we need to trim the fat. We need to let the audience breathe. When I hear these intros that keep going on and on and on, it feels like the podcaster's afraid to let the audience breathe. Imagine going to a party. You're invited. You're standing on the front step. You knock on the door, right? And the door opens. And as soon as you walk in, you get this intro, like we're talking about, but like in a podcast, but you get it in real life. And you haven't even stepped in the door and they're still talking to you. They're still trying to convince you to come into the party, but you can't get past them to get into the house because they're still doing the intro. And you're like, I'll just wait on this step until you're done talking, I guess. And you're just kind of, the guest is looking back out to the street to see if there's a van filming you, or is there like a camera? Like, what is happening here? Why are you? And it's like they're just, the host is staring at you from inside the house, looking out at you on the step, and they're just, they're telling you about all of the things. And you're like, great. It's my first time here. My friend invited me. Who are you? Like, what is going on here? And I get that feeling in podcasts that people are standing on the step of the party that you've been invited to, the podcast, and they're like, I don't know what's going on. This isn't what I expected. I was told this was a great show and I'd really love it. My friends told me, and I'm just stuck here on the step trying to get in. So I think we just need to get people in the door. Okay, enough to get them in the door, feel comfortable. Here's where you put your coats. Here's Bob. Bob's really fun to talk to. My name is Dave. This is a podcast about podcasting. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the party. Glad to have you here. Let me take you around and introduce you to some friends. Instead of, let me tell you about my entire backstory, including all of my family pets, every job I've ever had, my favorite ice cream, and the top 35 movies that I've ever seen. I don't need to know all of that. Can I come in? I think that might be part of it. We need to trim some of the fat and let our audience breathe. Don't hit them with a wall of you when people hit play on your podcast. Start strong, be human, and get to the thing they came for. The magic isn't in the fluff, it's in the flow. Your audience is already listening. They're already showing up. Don't punish them when they come to you and they hit play on your next episode. Let's check in with our host. I think she's maybe still going. Let's just see here.
Speaking of bandwidth, I did something spontaneous this week. I went hiking alone, intentionally without my smartwatch, because sometimes you have to disconnect to reconnect, you know? I got lost for 4 hours, which some might call a problem, but I call it expanding my GPS resilience.
A reminder, we're still in the intro. We haven't even got to the guest yet. Okay, I'll just keep going. Oh, I know. We're still in the intro.
I came back feeling both dehydrated and reborn. But enough about me. Well, actually, one more quick story before we jump in.
Oh, for the love of podcasting. Come on.
My golden doodle, Maxwell, got certified in emotional awareness this week. He completed level 2 bark flow training, which means he's now attuned to my productivity cycles.
Geez, that dog needs a play date with another dog. Oh my gosh.
I feel it's important my listeners know this because he's really the heartbeat of the brand. Oh, and we're still tweaking the new acoustic treatment in my home studio, so if you hear a faint resonance or low-frequency hum, that's just the sound of my Himalayan salt lamp syncing with my heart chakra.
Okay, I can't hear anything over the length of this episode intro. Whatever's going on in the background, I have no idea.
We're doing some fascinating A/B testing between authenticity and reverb. So, yeah, that's the energy I'm bringing in today. And honestly, I'm so thrilled for this next conversation because today's guest is not just one of my favorite thinkers. She's literally a movement. Dr. Calissa Penumbra Doyle. Calissa's work is the cornerstone of what I call the future-forward self.
Okay, cue the LinkedIn bio in 3, 2, 1.
She's the founder and chief resonance officer of NeuroStream Alignment Dynamics, the Think, Do, Feel tank pioneering human-centered neuro realignment strategies for unbounded innovation ecosystems. But before we get into her incredible insights...
Before we get into... before we get into... Oh, come on. Oh, please, come on.
I just have to share how aligned this conversation truly is. So, earlier this week, I was journaling in my gratitude hammock. You know, the one made from ethically sourced hemp fibers infused with magnesium threads.
I hope there's an affiliate link for that, because, you gotta have it.
And I literally wrote, podcasting isn't about speaking. It's about transmitting frequency. And then, 30 minutes later, guess who emailed me? Calissa. Like, what? You can't make that up. Now, if you don't already know Calissa's story, and honestly, if you don't, you're probably living under an unoptimized paradigm. She's an integrative neuroconsciousness theorist, a best-selling author of Flowconomics, Rethinking Abundance in the Rhizomatic Economy, a keynote luminary, and, according to Forbes' Mindful 50, one of the top multidimensional thought specialists redefining human possibility.
Oh, no, wait. There's more.
But she's also just human. Like, really human in that kind of aspirationally relatable way where you feel like her aura could host a TED Talk on authenticity management. We first met in a clubhouse room called Radical Collaboration in the Quantum Now.
Say what now?
And I knew immediately that our energetic syntax was aligned. Okay, but before we dive in...
Oh, it's a paper cut with lemon juice already. Come on. Oh, ow.
I need to thank our sponsors. First up, PivotWell, the productivity supplement that merges mindfulness with mitochondria, using data-driven intention molecules to boost your synergy profile.
I have no idea what that is.
And of course, a huge shout out to NordZen, the only VPN that protects not just your data, but your energy field.
And you are protecting us from this podcast starting. Wow.
All right, listeners, grab your ceremonial cacao or your adaptogenic macchiato, dim your hue lights to Innovation Midnight, and settle in. Today we are going deep into neural resonance, leadership energetics, and probably a few tangents about collective consciousness. I am vibrating with excitement right now, and not just because I had my third espresso shot.
I can't tell.
So without further ado...
You keep using the word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
And I know we've covered a lot. Please join me in welcoming to the synergy spectrum the incomparable, the insightful, the paradigm-pivoting Dr. Calissa Penumbra Doyle. Calissa, welcome. It's just such a joy to hold this space with you today. For our listeners that are just now meeting you for the first time, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about yourself, what you do, and who you serve.
Okay, after all of that, to get to this, don't ask that question. Don't set them up for a repeat of what we... Oh, no, please don't ask that question. Just get to the first question. We already know too much. My brain is hurting. Please, just get on with it. Come on.
For our listeners that are just now meeting you for the first time, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about yourself, what you do, and who you serve. What your mission is in business, your North Star, and outline for us 10 truths that we can unpack before we get into our discussion today. Welcome to the show.
Okay. Wow. Now, If you want to hear this entire intro in its entirety without Dave chopping it into pieces and adding in my cynical quips but if you just want to hear the whole thing, I'll put it at the very, very end of the show after everything's done. If you just want to just have a meltdown, okay, and go, okay. Now that I hear it all together without a whole bunch of Dave in the middle, okay, all right, maybe that's a little long. That's a little long. I'll put it there for you. It's there. Enjoy. I'll watch my stats and see if anybody actually goes to the end of the episode to listen to this. But I'll put the whole thing there. Here's my big takeaway for you as we think about intros for our podcast. Remember, we have one chance to make a first impression. You have new people coming to your show who don't know you at all. Think of your podcast as a get-together, a social event, a party, whatever you want to call it. People are coming. Some people know you. Some people are guests of guests. Some people are meeting you for the first time, even if it's your event. They're coming to the door. They're ringing the doorbell. They're knocking on the door. And they're coming in to see and be a part of your event. You're the host. You set the tone for what's going to happen in this event, in this podcast, at your party. You are the one who is going to be the master of ceremonies, the one that will make sure everyone has a great time. Everyone gets acknowledged. No one's ignored in the corner. People aren't backing out of the room because they feel awkward. This is your event, and you're the host. So please, don't hold your guests at the door with an extended intro. Don't hold your guests at the door with a bunch of fluff and a bunch of stuff that doesn't mean anything to anybody except you. If you want to put that stuff in because it's a connection point and your audience tells you that they love it, then put it at the end where your audience is still listening. If you love this show, you're still here. So this is where I would put in and tell you about my cat or my day or whatever, that I can't start my truck because it's broken down in the driveway and I don't have enough money to get it fixed. Like that. I'll tell you that stuff here, but not at the beginning. Who cares about Dave's truck? We're here about an episode about intros. You see what I'm saying? So this is where you can do that kind of stuff because your audience that knows and loves you the most, they'll stick around long enough to hear some of the other stuff unrelated to the topic. You have new listeners potentially on every single episode. You need to show up in a way that's inviting for new people, honors the people that have been here for a long time, and makes everybody feel comfortable, welcomed, acknowledged. This intro is all about the host. Very little about the guest. And not at all about the audience. And that's my sticking point with you and with your intros. And when I listen to your show, this is what stands out to me. It's just too long, and it's just too much of you navel gazing the whole time about yourself. This is about your listener. This is about the person who presses play, not the person who presses record. That's the difference. A podcast is about the person who presses play and not the person who presses record. I think that's going to be a shirt. Okay, I'll work on that. A podcast is about the listener. It's about the viewer. It's about the person who consumes the content. It is not about you. We love you. We care about you. We want to be part of your community as listeners. But we want to get to the thing. Just get to the thing. This is meant to be satirical. This is meant to be kind of tongue-in-cheek. This is meant to be like, here's the worst possible example that I could ever think of, okay, without being hypercritical. I just wanted you to get a sense that maybe it's time to relook at your intro. Maybe you're doing great, and this means this is like a sign-off, like an approval that, hey, I am on the right path because my intros don't sound like this at all, then awesome. I hope you had a few laughs. I hope you rolled your eyes and you went, oh, I'm sharing this with somebody. This Dave guy is a little bit off the wall. Yeah, I would love for you to do that. And if this challenges you and you're like, I think I fell into a hole here and I don't know how to get out, I am happy to throw you a lifeline. howtopodcast.ca. My calendar's right there. You and I can listen to your intro together and go, okay, did we need that part? Did we need this part? Why is this here? Why did you go this direction? Why is it this long? What is happening? And in loving and fun banter back and forth, we will come up with what works for you. I'm not here to criticize you. I'm not here to harm you in any way. I only want what's good for you, and I only want what's best for your audience. So if you need any help, and you're like, do I trust this Dave guy, or is he just a bunch of words? I hope I'm not just a bunch of words. If you talk to my podcasting friends, they'll tell you that I do care about podcasters. I really, really care about podcasters. And if I can help you in any way, I'd love to do that at howtopodcast.ca. So again, we'll wrap up. We'll do our outro. You know how we do things. And at the very end, at the very, very, very end, I'll replay the entire intro in its entirety without Dave. Okay. Thanks for being here. And if you need any help with your show at all, with anything, including intros, howtopodcast.ca. Take care. And after the outro, we'll play the intro again. You know, because we like to. Thanks for being here. Hey, thanks for being here to the end of the episode. That means a lot to me. It means a lot to all the players and all the apps. You're telling the apps, this is a podcast worth listening to. So you've just made this show better. So thank you. Now, I've had people reach out to me and they're like, Dave, I need to start a podcast and I'd love to start. But when I come to your show, there's a lot of episodes and I don't know where to start. How do I skip the line? How do I get to where I want to be without listening to over 500, 600 episodes? How do we make this happen? I love what you do, but I want to just get going. Well, I do offer consultations on podcasting and helping you and launching podcasts and coaching and mindset and everything, technology, interviewing techniques, whatever you can think of, I can help you with. And I have some paid offerings then to help you with that. So if you want to skip the line, great. You and I can work together. Let's figure out what you can afford. Let's figure out what we can do together. Always happy to help. Understand, though, this podcast is always going to be free. So you can bypass paying anything for anything because this show's always free. The meetups that we do, which is podcast consulting in a community setting, always free, twice a week. Over 2 years we've been doing it. There's always a free option. I'm not going to charge you to be here as a listener. But if you want to skip the line and kind of condense 500 plus episodes, then let's work together, you and I together. And I have some paid offerings. Reach out to me. We can talk about it. howtopodcast.ca. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to the end. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate you being part of this community. Always free, but always helpful. It's a How to Podcast series. Thanks for being here. Cheers.
Hey there, and welcome back, friends, thought leaders, conscious disruptors, paradigm alchemists, and multidimensional go-getters. You're tuned into the Synergy Spectrum, where we don't just discuss innovation, we vibrate with it. This is the audio space where we explore the interconnectedness of purpose, praxis, and personal bandwidth in the age of exponential becoming. I'm your host, Blaine Everford Weston III, multi-hyphenate entrepreneur, certified breathwork facilitator, and unretired visionary. And before we dive into today's high-resonance conversation, I just want to check in with you all because, honestly, what a week it's been. Like, wow. Monday morning hit me like an email from the universe I forgot to archive. I woke up at 4:44 a.m., my angel number, obviously, and I felt called to make some major shifts. I redid my entire Notion workspace, color-coded my emotional priorities, recalibrated my sleep hygiene algorithm, and then, get this, accidentally fasted for 19 hours because I was in a flow state editing my personal manifesto video. I've been microdosing on intention ever since. Tuesday was wild, too. I got this oat milk flat white from the new Third Wave coffee bar down the street. The one that doesn't take cash, cards, or Apple Pay, only good vibes on Venmo. And I swear it changed the frequency of my cells. Then I had Pilates, but it wasn't typical Pilates. It was more of an emotionally intelligent Pilates class that integrates affirmations with spinal realignment and executive shadow work. Anyway, that kind of blurred into Wednesday, which I thought was Thursday, until I realized my phone calendar had synced with Australian Eastern Time because I'd accidentally joined a digital nomad Slack for brand consultants in Bali. This happens more often than you'd think. Now, as I spent like 3 hours accidentally mentoring someone on tactile empathy in user experience design before realizing I was in the wrong channel. Oh, and something I wanted to share. I'm trying out this new cold plunge protocol that combines gratitude journaling with submersion tracking. I've been doing 3-minute plunges while listening to classical lo-fi remixes of Fortune 500 mission statements. It's been transformative. Also, if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw my post about the new artisan candle lineup I'm beta testing for the Conscious Aroma Leadership series. Scent profiles inspired by keywords like synergy, authenticity, and bandwidth. Speaking of bandwidth, I did something spontaneous this week. I went hiking alone, intentionally without my smartwatch, because sometimes you have to disconnect to reconnect, you know? I got lost for 4 hours, which some might call a problem, but I call it expanding my GPS resilience. I came back feeling both dehydrated and reborn. But enough about me. Well, actually, one more quick story before we jump in. My golden doodle, Maxwell, got certified in emotional awareness this week. He completed level 2 bark flow training, which means he's now attuned to my productivity cycles. I feel it's important my listeners know this because he's really the heartbeat of the brand. Oh, and we're still tweaking the new acoustic treatment in my home studio, so if you hear a faint resonance or low-frequency hum, that's just the sound of my Himalayan salt lamp syncing with my heart chakra. We're doing some fascinating A/B testing between authenticity and reverb. So, yeah, that's the energy I'm bringing in today. And honestly, I'm so thrilled for this next conversation because today's guest is not just one of my favorite thinkers. She's literally a movement. Dr. Calissa Penumbra Doyle. Calissa's work is the cornerstone of what I call the future-forward self. She's the founder and chief resonance officer of NeuroStream Alignment Dynamics, the think-do-feel tank pioneering human-centered neuro-realignment strategies for unbounded innovation ecosystems. But before we get into her incredible insights, I just have to share how aligned this conversation truly is. So, earlier this week, I was journaling in my gratitude hammock. You know, the one made from ethically sourced hemp fibers infused with magnesium threads. And I literally wrote, podcasting isn't about speaking. It's about transmitting frequency. And then, 30 minutes later, guess who emailed me? Calissa. Like, what? You can't make that up. Now, if you don't already know Calissa's story, and honestly, if you don't, you're probably living under an unoptimized paradigm. She's an integrative neuroconsciousness theorist, a best-selling author of Flowconomics, Rethinking Abundance in the Rhizomatic Economy, a keynote luminary, and, according to Forbes' Mindful 50, one of the top multidimensional thought specialists redefining human possibility. But she's also just human. Like, really human in that kind of aspirationally relatable way where you feel like her aura could host a TED Talk on authenticity management. We first met in a clubhouse room called Radical Collaboration in the Quantum Now, and I knew immediately that our energetic syntax was aligned. Okay, but before we dive in, I need to thank our sponsors. First up, PivotWell, the productivity supplement that merges mindfulness with mitochondria, using data-driven intention molecules to boost your synergy profile. And of course, a huge shout out to Nordzen VPN, the only VPN that protects not just your data, but your energy field. All right, listeners, grab your ceremonial cacao or your adaptogenic macchiato, dim your hue lights to Innovation Midnight, and settle in. Today we are going deep into neural resonance, leadership energetics, and probably a few tangents about collective consciousness. I am vibrating with excitement right now, and not just because I had my third espresso shot. So without further ado, and I know we've covered a lot, please join me in welcoming to the synergy spectrum the incomparable, the insightful, the paradigm-pivoting Dr. Calissa Penumbra Doyle. Calissa, welcome. It's just such a joy to hold this space with you today. For our listeners that are just now meeting you for the first time, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about yourself, what you do, and who you serve. What your mission is in business, your North Star, and outline for us 10 truths that we can unpack before we get into our discussion today. Welcome to the show.